Hey again, YouTube, and thanks, Mike, for your wonderful response. A couple things I wanted to say about this whole Christmas debate. Really, three things. The first thing I want to say, just to get it out of the way, really, is personal thing, my personal take on Christmas, which is it's a fun holiday, for the most part. We celebrate Christmas in our household. We don't have the tree up yet, which has nothing to do with why I'm recording from this angle. We rearranged the living room, and this is where the computer is now. So, yeah, it's a laptop. It could be wherever I wanted it to be, but this is where it is. I'll figure out something that is a little more aesthetic for the future. It'll probably end up back where it was. Christmas is kind of a pain in the ass. You gotta travel a lot. You gotta spend money you really don't have. And you get presents in return for the presents you buy for other people. But for the most part, they're things you wouldn't have spent the money on for yourself because you're broke. But let's be honest. Most Christians probably notice the same thing about Christmas. It's not a sectarian complaint. So yeah, we celebrate Christmas. At some point soon we'll have a tree. Don't know if we'll put up lights or not. Yeah, I'm very busy and a little, I have a certain lazy streak, so. But I also have a wife who's really big on that stuff, so yeah, it'll happen. And it's not like she's a Christian and I'm humoring her. We're both atheists, and on balance, each of us enjoys the holiday. Now that that's out of the way, here are the two things I wanted to say. First of all, I wanted to clarify the message I really wanted to get across with my video response to Jack, and I got kind of sidetracked on the issue of atheists being so reviled. And that was worth mentioning and I think relevant, but there was something else I wanted to point out, which I lost track of, which is that what I really want to get at is atheists are not declaring a war on Christmas. And I'm not necessarily criticizing Jack here, but, well, I am and I'm not. Because a lot of Christians have a very distinct sense that there is an atheist, or even just liberal, war on Christmas. And I want to dispel that. I want to be perfectly clear. There is no war on Christmas. Certainly there's no organized war on Christmas. Certainly there's nothing that's being participated in by any statistically significant part of the atheist population that can be called a war on Christmas. Are there a few people out there that probably would destroy Christmas if they could? Grinches? Sure. I imagine that if you put all the people who want to destroy Christmas in one room, I expect probably a pretty small portion of them would be atheists. I'm sure a big chunk of them would be Christians who don't believe in Christmas, and I respect their opinion, and non-Christians of other religions who have some sort of hostility toward Christianity because of their own sectarian differences. We are not in a war on Christmas, and the idea of a war on Christmas is just more of that Fox News liberal agenda bullshit that most of us know is bullshit. Now, Jack, I know you're not part of that Fox News propaganda line. I know you're not. But I feel like, and this is my own perspective, I know you're not under any obligation to necessarily put up the videos I would like to see from intelligent Christians, but this is something I would like to see, which is, do your part to dispel that myth, because your video could be easily construed, I think, as supporting the myth. And if you do support the claim, if you don't consider it a myth, that atheists or liberals are in a war on Christmas, then come out and say that. Be clear about that, and we can have a discussion about that. The third thing I want to say is a little bit more specifically in response to Jack's video. You talked about a billboard, and I didn't really talk about it in my response to you, even though I meant to. And the book Billboard said, allegedly, I mean, I didn't see it myself, "You know it's a myth. This season celebrate reason." And I agree with what Mike said, Rational Roundtable, that it was probably intended to elicit a reaction, maybe sort of shock them. But let's all do an experiment a thought experiment for me. Indulge me in this. Let's try to imagine a statement that we might see on a billboard that is a perfect semantic mirror of that. In other words, something from a Christian point of view that is semantically equivalent, that is equivalent in how patronizing and presumptuous it is. The problem is there are dozens of such billboards in practically every heavily populated area of America. Especially this time of year. Go to any city with more than 100,000 people, and I guarantee you'll see dozens of those billboards. Billboards telling you, that you need to get right with Jesus, telling you you gotta live for God, telling you this, telling you that, accusing you of not being a good Christian, because the people who make billboards, the people who communicate with the public in general, start with the assumption that you're Christian. If you're not Christian in America, you're basically walking around in a world where depending on where you live, anywhere from 1/3 to 2/3 of the messages being sent your way are not actually intended for you at all. This can be a little, not disorienting, but a little jarring. I don't think I noticed it when I was Christian. And as I got farther and farther away from identifying as a Christian, it became more and more apparent. And that's something that I really want to challenge American Christians to stop and think about, just how much of the communication you see every day. Not just while you're at church, not necessarily while you're watching CBN, if you're into that kind of thing, not necessarily when you're doing something where you expect to see a religion, but just walk around, look at the signs, look at, just watch TV and look at the commercials, listen to the dialogue people have on sitcoms. Everyone's a Christian on television. Some of them are Jews. If they're an atheist, it's a big deal is made of the fact that they're an atheist. Everyone's a Christian. All the messages are coming from a Christian perspective. They're talking to you as if you're, as if it's assumed that you're a Christian. The thing is, this billboard would not seem unusual at all if we took the message and just flipped it around so that it was a pro-Christian instead of anti-Christian, but still equally presumptuous, equally arrogant. And it is arrogant. It is presumptuous. I'll grant you that. That's why I wouldn't make a billboard like that myself. We wouldn't, if it was the opposite, if it was pro-Christian, we wouldn't even notice it. I mean, people who saw it, it might be above average in its arrogance and its presumptuousness. I might give you that. But on the other hand, I'd like to point out that there was another billboard, or actually these were ads on the side of side of a bus or something. It said something like, "There's probably no God, so just relax." Actually, I was tickled by those. I like those. I wish I lived in a town that had those.
it would truly would make me feel good every day. Not in a smug kind of way, but just in a nice to know you're out there kind of way. If I saw something like that, the ones that said, there's probably no God, so just relax. That pissed off a lot of people too. Jack, I don't know how you felt about those, if you even know what I'm talking about. And I don't know how you would have felt about those if you did see them. So I'm not going to assume anything about your reaction. But what I will say is a lot of Christians were upset about those. A lot. That's why I think they're not there anymore. And although I have no problem seeing that the billboard you talk about in your video is a little insulting, I don't think the same could be said about that. And yet, so many Christians are just conditioned to expect to live in a pro-Christian society that any deviation from that, any sense of perspective on that seems like an insult to them. And that's very unfortunate, I think. I've rambled for long enough. Thanks for listening.